we have a special comedian with us. John Fugelsang is an actor, comedian, writer, television host, political commentator, known for his roles in films like Coyote Ugly and television series such as CSI. He's the son of a former Catholic nun and a former Franciscan monk. A unique upbringing, he says, has deeply influenced his politics and his faith. Fugelsang is also the host of the Sirius XM show Tell Me Everything and the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Separation of Church and State. There it is. A sane person. Separation of Church and Hate. A sane person's guide to taking back the Bible from fundamentalists, fascists, and flock fleecing frauds. Oh, that's quite a alliteration. Welcome to the show, John Fugelsang. Hey, John.
So nice to see you, Jimmy. How you doing?
Good. How do you not age? How does that happen?
I do it on the inside. I'm decrepit and crumbling. I'm the entire cast of Cocoon inside.
Oh, man. Whatever
How
you're
do you not age, Jimmy? What orphan blood are you drinking?
Nice.
Come on, I'm all gray now over here.
Rescue dogs.
What's that?
Rescue dogs.
Rescue dogs. All right, well, let's get to your book. I just wanted to read. It's a fascinating read. First of all, you know your stuff, that's for sure. Here's from the introduction. You say big families meant many reunions, many conservative relatives, many cans of beer. My dad would often debate loved ones on politics and scripture. In the same gregarious Brooklynite way, he debated for years with his Franciscan housemates. It exasperated my Southern mom, but everyone mostly loved each other, despite any differences in voting habits. I think many of us remember in America when family could disagree over politics while still generally getting along. Maybe you still can. John, what do you think happened? Why do you think that isn't possible anymore?
Oh, I don't think it's not. I think it's very possible.
Oh, okay.
I really do. And I think there's millions of families that do get along despite our political differences. And those sort of relationships don't get amplified by the media. They don't get amplified by the algorithm. We have a corporate media culture and an internet culture that, guys get rich off of us hating each other more. So there's tons of families like that, but it's undeniable. We talk to so many people, I'm sure you do as well, who for whatever political reasons no longer speak with blood relatives anymore. And I'm always going to think that's bad if they're not directly abusive to you just because of a difference in ideology. And I wrote this book because I find that if you have a hardcore right-wing hate Christian in your life, a Christian nationalist or an extreme fundamentalist, I find instead of hating them and calling them superstitious, engaging on what the Bible actually says, it can build a bridge. You might not sway them, but they might appreciate that you engage them on scripture. And I think you'll get farther with your racist uncle by showing how Jesus wasn't an immigrant-hating homophobe than if you just call your uncle an immigrant-hating homophobe. So this book is every issue that divides us and what Jesus actually says, which tends to not be what the hardcore Christian right fights for.
So, I have a question, Jimmy.
Sure, go ahead.
Isn't most of the hardcore Christian right gay?
You're thinking of the Vatican. You're thinking of the Vatican now. Come on.
Oh, well, they call themselves trad-cath, and that's very trad and cat. I mean, your parents must have been condemned for what they did is way worse in that church.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting that that's the church that thought my parents weren't moral enough to stay in the clergy. It's true. But,
that's a fact. It's worse than if you do something with a boy, having normal married sex with a man and woman.
I mean, my dad always said that the same love that drew him into the brothers and a life of service drew him out of it into marriage and having a family. And he viewed it as being part of the same ministry. And he was a big social justice Catholic. He was all Jesus, MLK, Dorothy Day, and Catholic Charities. And so that's the model I was raised in. And I think a lot of people were raised in a Christianity that was about love and service and uplifting the less fortunate, the stuff Jesus talks about, looking out for marginalized communities, not hating your enemies. And a lot of people consider themselves spiritual now instead of religion, not because they don't like God or Jesus or Santa Claus or Noah's Ark. It's because they feel like the religion's been hijacked by meanness. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable saying they're Christian anymore. They go by spiritual because the brand is tainted by many. And I kind of feel like Jesus, the character himself, is every bit as threatening to authoritarian power now as he was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's why we got that New Age crap. Why do you think we have that? It's not compatible with patriot warmongering. It's in no way is that compatible at all.
No, it's not.
And a lot of people don't like cognitive dissonance, so of course they're going to go, I'm just going to be spiritual.
So, and the reality is Jesus, even if you're atheist, if you're debating a hardcore right-wing Christian nationalist, Jesus is probably on your side on most topics, even if you don't believe in him.
So I grew up Catholic, and my parents were, very moral Catholics. And racism was accepted in my neighborhood growing up, but not in my house.
Same here.
Yeah. So they started to do a thing called scattered site housing in Chicago, which is so they used to take all the poor people and all the black people and put them like in big high rises. And so they tried to isolate them. And then they realized that's not a good idea. And so they tried to do what they called scattered site housing, meaning they would put communities of black people spread around at the city, right? And so that just caused white flight, and that caused people to be extra afraid of black people. And then they started to, it brought out the racism in them, right? But in my house, we weren't allowed to use the N-word. You weren't allowed to any of that stuff. In fact, I have 2 adopted siblings, one Puerto Rican, one Mexican. And so
your parents were the real deal Catholics, Jimmy. Wow.
Yeah. They went to, they got the kids from Catholic charities. That's how Catholic they were.
My mom went to take care of lepers in Malawi as a nurse.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
So I get that. I totally, I get that. But then again, my parents looked the other way when Father Holohan was molesting us. So
it's a give and take, Jimmy.
It's a give and take. You got to take the good with the bad.
Let's think of all the great humor that resulted. But yeah, I'm as a fan, it's worth it. But good God, Jimmy, good God. And I think that's why the Catholic Church is an atheist factory for so many. I mean, they said, they said ordaining women is a grave crime. The same language they used to describe the child rape. It's like, guys, read the room. I think they've gotten a lot better in the last few years, but
yeah,
I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I was able to get away. He came at me. We had a priest who would take us because we were all poor, and he had a house up on a lake in Wisconsin with a boat, and he's like, "Take you skiing." We're like, "Of course, we'll go skiing." And then he would schedule the day so you had to change in and out of your clothes a bunch of times.
Oh no.
Yeah, and every time we would change clothes, he'd come in the room and decide to wrestle one of us.
Oh no.
But the problem was he's not that kind of a guy. He was a nerdy, bookish. He's not an athlete. He wasn't a wrestler.
Poor guy. Oh,
Tim Waltz really pulls it off when he does that.
Tim Waltz does pull it off. So when
nice trip to China.
So when he came for me, I got away. I remember I knocked over a he had a gumball machine, which I thought was the coolest thing. And I knocked it over. And anyway.
But here's an example of this. Like the celibacy in the Catholic Church, the first Pope, St. Peter, was married. All the priests and popes and bishops could marry for over 1,000 years. It wasn't until 1139 AD, right? Pope Innocent II made celibacy the law, not because Jesus was a bachelor or because sex was bad, because the church didn't want priests leaving land and wealth to their kids.
That's it.
And that is why we've had celibacy rotting the brains of men who are wearing dresses and giving marital advice to married couples. And it's nothing based in scripture. This is all Da Vinci Code shit. It's got nothing to do with Jesus. It's the hang-ups of dead guys and greed.
Yes.
It also attracts, if let's say you are acclimated that way, it will attract you as a job.
Yeah, correct.
That's why the far right, whatever, I don't know who you mean specifically, but I'll give you a great example. When that guy Chris Cantwell from the Charlotte marches, he does now gay porn where it's like Nazi and Jew gay porn because he was gay the whole time. Yeah. So there's a thing that attracts a kind of dude. That's why the thing is so funny about the homophobia is those are almost all overwhelmingly gay guys doing that.
Oh my God, yes.
I can't believe it.
I mean, any man who tells you that same-sex attraction is a choice to be resisted probably has some experience resisting it, if you know what I'm saying. And none of that comes from Jesus. None of that comes from the Gospels at all. That comes from parts of the Bible that Christians don't follow and aren't supposed to follow, that they've weaponized against a gay minority that Jesus commands them to love.
It's gays weaponizing it on gays because of self-hate being the greatest love of all.
I'm not here to kink shame, sir. I'm not here to kink shame.
But there's people that I watch it nonstop, and when Richard Spencer was the darling of the minute of the liberal media as your boogeyman, I just kept going, why are these parade of obvious gay men? And I got to hear how they're a Nazi threat coming. I'm like, are you sure? It looks like it's a fashion thing for them.
I'm thinking of all the right-wing podcasters I'm not making jokes about right now. Yeah.
So
I don't like who. I don't know.
No,
I don't know any podcasters now.
I mean, but that's the thing about the homophobia. Ken Mellman was the chair of the RNC in 2004 when they were running for re-election against gay marriage. They literally had the campaign run by a gay man consumed with shame. And again, like, the good news of Jesus is you could drop all the homophobia shit because that's against everything he talks about. Leviticus shall not lie with a man as with a woman. They want to hang all their hate on this, but that's instructions for the Jews who were fleeing captivity in Egypt, and they didn't have any Wi-Fi or antibiotics for 40 years in the desert, and it's all about keep your numbers up. It's like no incest, no bestiality, no guys with guys, no sex on our period. It's all about keep making more people so the tribe doesn't die out. It's not about consensual relations with men, and even if it was, the character of Jesus supposedly brought a new covenant. So Leviticus doesn't apply. And if it does, then Leviticus 20:10 commands you to stone adulterers to death. And I'll let these guys work that out with Mr. Trump on their own.
Yeah, no, that's more. Okay, so because Paul, now I'm not saying I believe this, but I'm telling you that's the Lord. Paul said don't do that. And the
Apostle Paul?
Yeah,
Paul.
but
look, Paul's not. But he didn't. Paul didn't. Paul's not Jesus. The word homosexual wasn't put into the translation of Paul's letters until 1946. But Paul was talking about Roman temple prostitutes. He was talking about rent boys. And Romans is not about gay men. He says they were worshiping their animal gods. Then God gave them up unto unnatural afflictions, meaning I think forced by, from what I've read in the person, God made them
not just
hook up with each other.
Galleys of Kybele, which is very analogous to today's gender affirming care, believe it or not, if you read the early things. But here's
Paul's not Jesus, and that's the good news. Paul ain't Jesus. And his word does not carry as much weight.
Like I said, I'm cool with you if you're gay. I'm just saying the lore somebody has if they're dedicated to it. Now, here's when they ask Christians.
But Jesus is so specific about how we're supposed to treat each other, and homophobia is in no way compatible with Sermon on the Mount.
Right, you're right. Let me get to it. So when they ask, you always see like a Christian celeb and they go, is it wrong to be gay in the Bible? And I'm going to say yes. However, I have sex and I'm not married and I have heterosexual sex. I'm as bad as that by those rules. So people don't.
Paul thought men should be celibate like him. Paul was against heterosexual sex.
Well, you're not allowed to fornicate in any way. Now, again, I don't live that way. I live with my girlfriend in sin, as they would call it. But
that didn't exist then because girls were married off at 13, so there was no premarital sex. It wasn't even a thing they talked about.
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to do what I want. But my what I'm saying is
most Christians do.
Yeah, to me, I agree with you. The thing is, the whole point of Jesus is to not have to have these ritualized laws anymore. If anything, the point of Jesus is to not have these, like the Torah, not have that shit where you're like, you got to wash up to your elbows or you're unclean.
Well, yeah, and that was the selling point when Paul was pitching it to the Gentiles. It was like, hey, it's like Judaism, but you get eternal forgiveness, and there's ham and bacon, and you keep your foreskin. Yeah, keep your foreskin, have some bacon, and eternal forgiveness. And the rate of conversion was incredible, like 3 to 4% a decade. So 300 years later, Rome takes over the operation of the guy they killed. I mean, there's cultural appropriation, and then there's that. And then Rome decided Paul's letters counted as scripture. And so for 2,000 years, we've had Paul's letters about God being treated as if that's God talking.
Wasn't that Constantinople who took over Christianity?
The city or the guy?
Who was the guy? What was his? Yeah,
it was
Keanu Reeves.
Theodosius, I think, was the one who formally made. It took like 100 years to actually merge the empire with Christianity, but that's what we saw, man. Like hardcore conservative religious authorities merging with imperial power is literally what killed Jesus.
Wow. Okay, but you know your stuff, John. I'll tell you. I got to give you that.
I have the therapy bill to prove it, Jeff. You have no idea.
So now you talk a lot in the book about, so it's about Christian nationalism. Well, how would you define what Christian nationalism is?
Honestly, I think that's become like a big umbrella term that they use for like every kind of thing, from the Oath Boys to the Promise Keepers to guys who like Tom Clancy books too much. Like I hear it used all the time for the KKK and for, the 3%ers and everything else. I mean, loosely defined, Christian nationalism means that they believe America was created to be a Christian nation and that America should have Christianity as its official religion, and that other religions are allowed to exist here, but Christianity is the one that's right. And so that has to be our national religion. They don't believe in fighting for the things Jesus talked about. They don't prioritize helping the poor, helping the sick, welcoming the stranger, caring for those in prison. Their religion is power. Their religion, they don't care about the teachings of Christ being made manifest. They care about conservative Christian control over society. That's the Seven Mountains Mandate. And that's what
did you just say?
Is, the Seven Mountains Mandate.
So do you know what that is, dude? That comes out of the same...
New Apostolic Reformation. That's Mike.
Okay,
that's
yo,
Mike
that's
Johnson's
an op,
group.
dude. That's an op. That's an op out of the New Age. That's Alice Bailey's. So it's actually the exact opposite of Christianity. It's actually inverted. Some would call it Luciferianism.
Look, the idea of Christianity is based, Jesus' whole movement is about humility, right? That's the thing that these guys don't get. His whole thing is about servant leadership, uplifting those less fortunate. He was
they get it. They're a coven. They get it.
Total right-wing domination of your school board, or our religion is better. If you're arguing that you're better than a whole other group of people, that you're better than Muslims because you believe in Jesus, bro, you don't fucking believe in Jesus, because that's the opposite of what he teaches.
They don't. They're a coven. Listen to me. They're a deliberate coven that is doing that on purpose.
But they're brainwashed. They've been groomed this way. I believe you can get them out of it. We've seen so many people.
No, the people, not the leaders. The leaders, I'm saying. So Joseph Smith.
Yes.
The Mormons are a cover for a coven. That was Joseph Smith. My religion I grew up in, Jehovah's Witnesses, Charles Russell. I just met Blair White, you might have heard of, came on, was explaining her family invented my religion. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses didn't worship that guy, but they didn't make him out like he was the prophet or anything like that. However, first of all of America, here's the intention for America. It wasn't anything with Jesus. It was to be the new Atlantis. That's a fact. That's what Jefferson believed.
You're right.
And Isaac Newton and Francis Bacon. And that's why the Washington Monument is a big Osiris cock, because it's got nothing to do with Jesus Christ. And that's where you hear this drivel about Jesus being also Osiris and Mithra and all that shit. And that's because these occultists that founded America, that's the only reason we even had this rush in the recent times of all that thing you're talking about is because somebody wrote some kind of op-ed about how 1,000 years ago now, an archaeologist would think, if they looked at America, they would think our religion was some kind of Greek, Egyptian, Roman hybrid thing, and it was almost like the George Clooney editorial that idiots think made Joe Biden drop out. So it kicked off a whole fervor. That and Billy Graham's a scumbag. Everything out of America. That's where we got Christian Zionism. All of this is phony ass Christianity, and I'm telling you, a lot of Christians are snapping out of it because I watch everything, especially. I like to watch Christian channels because I want to see how their moves and shit, you know?
I do too.
Prosperity gospel's going away.
Prosperity gospel is like that. Now, prosperity gospel is not Christian nationalism, right? I mean, Joel Osteen is not a racist. He's not a bigot. He's not anything, but it's still junk theology. Because when you're going out there saying, oh, if you're so good and God will reward you with material graces because you are just so wonderful, well, that's messaging. If you fall on hard times, it's because you're spiritually deficient somehow and God doesn't like you. At no point in the Bible does Jesus say you're going to get stuff for being so awesome. Jesus's movement is about what you do, not what you get. So it's junk theology that sells people on what they want to hear. And that's how Donald Trump got him. He didn't promise to fight for the poor or fight for the sick. And he sure didn't promise to welcome the stranger as we are commanded, individuals and nations in Matthew 6:5. He promised to put Christians on top. He promised power. He said, you've been persecuted. He played up the persecution narrative.
Well, they were persecuted. There's no doubt about that. But it's on purpose. It's a dialectic is what it is.
Well, early Christians were persecuted, but we got people who are the majority of religion.
No, here
65% of the population is saying that they're the persecuted minority. And that's one thing that all fundamentalists have in common. When you let fundamentalists, extreme right wing, control governments, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, what do you get? Women are always second-class citizens. The more to the right your religion is, the more women. God made 51% of us not good enough. Number two, sex, always the sex hang-ups, unless it's for procreation. The more right-wing, doesn't matter the religion. Three, violence is okay if my side does it, because I'm on the side of God. If you're against me, you represent Satan. I'm allowed to kill Satan. Four, they always, the more to the right they are, focus on punishment, never healing. And five, the victimhood narrative, the victim bully. I'm allowed to be as brutal as I want because I've been abused so much.
That sounds like the fake left. That sounds exactly like the fake left.
Right.
They just killed Charlie Kirk and said it was okay. And I know Israel's behind it, but the patsies they got. And
I don't think Israel's behind killing Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
Well, I do.
I mean,
anyway,
I'm happy to hear the theory, but I think the Mormons are behind, or a Mormon is behind it, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay.
It's all the same fucking thing. The point is,
hang on.
I went through it. And let me tell you, all the things you describe the dipshit New York fake fucking left, and I experienced it personally. They want you homeless and dead. So, secondly, all that gender crap they push for 12 years. Now, keep in mind, I think trans women are better than women.
Who are we talking about?
Okay, hold on.
The second-class citizens are women.
Okay.
In the left and the right.
Who's pushing this? Who specifically?
Yo, J.K. Rowling and the other chick can't get along no more because J.K. Rowling wanted women's bathrooms still. They pushed some nonsense in the supposed left that caused the Trump thing way more than any promises Trump made, even though the promise of Liz Cheney being executed, I was kind of hoping for. He didn't come through on that one. But that was caused by the fake left here. I don't think we have a left or right. I think we got one control structure that does the dialectic over and over. That's all I think we got.
I think we got oligarchs, and we got an obedient right, and a bunch of left that can't stop hating each other and fighting each other.
Okay.
They're all the same fucking thing. They're all the same church.
Hold on, Kurt.
What do you think Antifa was? Not violent?
So hang on, Kurt. Hang on. Let me. We got two all over the place. I had a direction I wanted to go with, and it got a little. But let me just. So I wanted to talk to you about Christian nationalism. So now you say in your book, Christian nationalism is a term vaguely covering a wide spectrum of colorful devotees, the traditional religious right, MAGA folk, old school hardcore God and country conservatives, all manner of white supremacists, assorted QAnon folk, Nazis, incels with unprocessed grief who spend too much time online, and the guys who just read too many Tom Clancy books.
Yeah,
so
it's like a giant umbrella term that's applied to virtually everybody to the right of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So what percentage? So when you say MAGA folk, you mean just some MAGA folk? You don't mean all of them, right?
Not all MAGA folk are Christian nationalists. No.
Right. Oh, okay.
And again, I really go to great pains in this book to separate conservatives from haters.
You do.
Because I find that conservative Christians, we don't agree on much, but I find they're often much more liberal with kindness than many actual liberals.
Yes.
And they can be quite lovely people. And Christian conservatives are going to have to deal with these haters as well. I mean, atheists are going to have to deal with these haters. Maybe they're your family, and we can't hate them back.
Okay, so when I saw that, your book, it's what I'm saying is, it seemed a little contradictory to me. Like I saw all that stuff you said. You definitely say that stuff. You said there's no doubt about it. That you say that the Christian conservatives are a lot of times more loving than the liberals and all that. It's all nice, right? Yeah. Which I've experienced that myself, right? So I have a mother-in-law who's would be called a right-wing Christian. She voted for Trump, and she's a wonderful person. And so when Trump got elected, I was like, what am I supposed to do? Hate my mother-in-law? She's a wonderful person. I can't do that. And so, I love her. That's
why I think talking about what Jesus actually says is a great way to meet people on their own terms if they live a Christian life. Because a lot of folks just don't know. And they've been sold a bill of goods about what this religion says. And it doesn't really match up with the scripture.
So when I saw this list, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. That sounds like half the country, but
no, PRRI, I talk about this in the book. There was a big survey done that had a list of 5 traits about, America was founded as a Christian culture. We have to get back to being a Christian culture. Only about 33% agree with all or some of the main tenets of Christian nationalism, but they do make up 2/3 of the Supreme Court. There's that.
Okay, that's good. So you would say 30% of the country would be considered Christian nationalist?
Again, like I said, these are vague umbrella terms, and I mean, I'm talking about people who are hating and thinking that that's Christian. That's who I'm taking on, and I use the word fundamentalist as much as I use the term Christian nationalist because I think both terms are becoming interchangeable at this point. Fundamentalist, of course, refers to the extreme conservative authority figures of all religions, but Christian nationalist, I mean, that's Hitler, and that's a certain kind of authoritarian Christianity, and that's the whole history of religion, right? It's authoritarian Christianity from Columbus, the Crusades, the doctrine of discovery, slavery, the Holocaust, but throughout, it's always been Christ followers who resisted the authoritarian Christianity. St. Francis resisted the war in the Crusades. Father Bartolomeo de las Casas was the first white person to do an act of protest in this hemisphere against what Columbus was doing in Hispaniola. Slavery was propped up by Christianity, but it was Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and the Quakers who pushed back. Dr. King pushed back, obviously shaming segregation with scripture. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Christian martyr against the Nazis. And we know so many people who've talked their grandparents out of so much homophobia in the last last 30 years. There's an amazing history of Christian activism, but it's always in response to brutal Christian authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Do you think, John?
Wait, Kurt, hold on. So what? So I just want to get this. What percentage would you say this book of Americans are you? Can you give me a ballpark on what is
of what
of what you would consider the people that you're talking about in this book, the ultra conservatives or the haters?
17.5%. I don't know. Some of us are related to them. Some of us aren't.
Okay.
But what I wanted to do was go through issue by issue, abortion, the LGBTQ equality, racism, white supremacy, and just go through topic after topic about what Jesus actually says versus what we've been allowed to think he said.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, you do it meticulously. You got it covered. There's no doubt about it. And you're a great writer. And it's often very funny. So
thank you,
Jimmy. It's a great book.
I'm getting a much more pious caliber of death threat, which has been really nice. I'm happy about that. Thank you, guys.
So that means you're doing good as a Christian if you get that. Do you know how they say God wrote the Bible? Wouldn't it have been good if he had maybe translated it too while he was in?
So
too many cooks.
So you say that here. So in the book, you also say this. You say, and of course, history has shown that countries governed by religious nationalism tend to descend into authoritarian regimes where dissent and diversity are suppressed. Looking at Iran, Saudi Arabia, Spain under Franco, Russia under Putin, or the Puritan Massachusetts Bay Colony, right? So you've spread it around. Even Buddhists, nationalists persecuting the Rohingya Muslims.
Yeah.
So we could do this all night. So you talk, so that's good. You spread it around, right? You don't just talk about.
I'm against using faith for cruelty. I'm against spirituality as being a cloaking device for douchebaggery. Yeah.
Well, the Bible. The Bible says it. If you want to believe the Bible, it says the whole world lies in the power of the wicked one, meaning Satan, and that's why Satan tempts Christ when he's 40 days and 40 nights, and he goes, "I'll give you all the kingdoms of the earth if you bow down to me," because he owns them all. So to put nationalism next to Christianity, it's a jumbo shrimp, but way worse of a misnomer.
It's idolatry. Yeah, it's idolatry.
Yeah, it's just pure idolatry. And all these nations, because I think Christianity, the way it took off, whatever anybody says, it's the one thing they feared the most, which is populism. It took off real fast. In fact, Herod Agrippa called it the mysterious force. What?
Look at Jesus. They had to bump him off quick.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus came, if you believe the story, I'm not telling you to believe it, but if you believe the story, he came here as a sting operation to get them to bump him off to free you from being born into a prison kind of sin state. I'm just telling you the lore of it. But they co-opted it almost immediately. That's where all the Mithra shit comes in, because all the soldiers.
Christmas Day, yeah.
Yeah, and they brought it all in, but it was spread so quickly, I think, because it was populism. And I'm watching the fake leftists now upset about populism, or stupid, was it Tony Blair or Keir Starmer saying we're going to have digital ID because he's at a convention about how all these populists, and they call everybody far right. Anybody that doesn't want them to utterly destroy their way of life and move them into that 2030 own nothing and love it way, that's far right to them. So I don't believe in left or right at all. There's something going on where they want you not to have any family. They want you atomized, like they say, and the commies warned us.
They want us hating each other, and the algorithm helps them.
Yes, I think that. So the reason why I read this part of your book, I agree with it. What you said, by the way, that history has shown countries governed by religious nationalism tend to descend into authoritarian regimes where dissent and diversity are suppressed. Now, I experienced this in my own country, most recently during COVID, right? So during COVID, you were not allowed to dissent. And if you were, I've had almost all of my Hollywood friends don't talk to me anymore because I pushed back against the COVID narrative. And I was right about every one of them because they turned science into that whole thing, trust the science. That's not how science works, right? You question science. That's how science progresses, is by questioning. And there's no such thing.
Don't believe it.
There's no, you don't believe science. And so you have to question science. That's how it moves forward. So I was, when I pushed back against even if you said, John, I don't know if you remember, but if you said that the virus came from a lab instead of a wet market, they called you a racist. That was for real. And then you'd get your stuff taken down on social media if you said it. Turned out that's exactly where it came from. And it was funded by Dr. Fauci, who lied to Congress.
Right, I think the concern was that people are saying it was deliberately unleashed by China on their own people, which was never confirmed.
Just saying that it came from the lab, they called you a racist.
I heard racist more for Kung Flu and China virus.
Okay, but
that is in no way racist. They say that in China.
That's racist.
So anyway,
you've been in China? They don't say that kind of shit. Kung Fu means anything with sustained effort. I went through the Kung Fu comedy tour.
It's racist.
If you speak Mandarin, it sounds racist. Okay, Americans are dumb as shit.
Hold on, wait a minute. Come on, Kurt. Let me take over my show again. So I'm just saying that that is true. I think that nations governed by religionist nationalism tend to want to censor, but we've lived through this. I mean, now Google just admitted to the committee in Congress that they were censoring at the behalf of the Biden administration. I was censored for telling the truth when I found out that the vaccine didn't stop transmission or contraction. They took down Go ahead.
But were you censored, or did a private corporation take down your work from their site?
So we just found out that the government was pressuring a private corporation. Of course, that's what the Twitter files revealed too. Yeah. So that they had FBI fact channels into Twitter. They had these NGO cutouts at Stanford. So this was all being done through the government pressure. And even Zuckerberg has admitted he got pressure from the White House and from the FBI to take down posts that were factual. And then Google just admitted they got pressured by the government to take down posts that didn't even violate their own terms of service. So this is the government of what was considered the left, which I don't consider the Democrats left.
Who under Trump in 2020?
No, we're talking about under Biden, the Biden White House. That's what
But what about the lockdowns under Trump? We have no problem with those?
No, I'm against them. 100% against them. I was against.
Biden's wasn't religious in nature. That was not a religious authoritarian.
No, I'm saying, but even without religion, we got that. Is what I'm saying.
Crackdown's a crackdown.
Hold on. So I'm saying that without religion, we got that anyway, right? And people just,
I think it was a debate about public health, and I think people made some bad choices. But I don't know if that's the same as an authoritarian religious regime cracking down on free speech.
Oh no, but they did crack down on free speech. So they just did it without the religion part, and they turned science into a religion. They turned science into, like, Fauci, you can't question him, like you can't question the Pope. You can't question the science, which is not how science. Which is not, I know you do. I'm just saying that when I did, I got completely. So everything that you're espousing that the extreme right wing does, which I agree with you, it was done to me by the people who consider themselves on the left. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I've already lived through that. And so when I had Cornel West on my show and he said we have to worry about fascism coming to America through Trump, I'm like, I just lived through 4. Where the fuck have you been? You've been in your ivory tower.
But it's also been the whole struggle of this country. I mean, we don't even take slavery seriously here. We've had fascism in many, many forms, and we've had authoritarian rule that made a mockery of the teachings of Jesus and propped itself up with religion many times in this country's history. This is the whole story of our struggle.
Right.
I mean, we hate each other so much, and we keep trying to find ways to beat each other and hate each other more instead of uplifting each other.
Right. No, I 100% agree with you there too. And
it's all this weed shit. I don't do that.
The message of my show is that, if you find yourself hating half the country, or if you find yourself blaming workers for a problem instead of joining with workers to oppose the oligarchy, you've been propagandized. That's the message of my show. Right.
Yeah, that's a message I keep waiting for the Democratic Party to realize is a winning one. I don't know if they're going to realize it this year.
And you make that point in your book several times, right? It's not I'm not trying to say that you don't agree with that, but I just wanted to make that point that, like I made to Cornel West, that we've been, the government mandating you take an experimental medical treatment with no long-term studies. That's Nazi shit. It happened, and people just try to memory hole it, and I won't let people memory hole it because it happened, and people wanted to take your kids away. They did it. They did. Half the Democratic Party thought that you should have your kids taken away if you weren't going to give them a vaccine for COVID. So I'm just saying that
I don't support taking people's kids.
Right,
away.
I know you don't. I'm just saying that.
Not sure who was calling for that.
So there were.
Noam Chomsky called for concentration camp. Noam
Chomsky did. Anyway, so I just wanted to make that point. That's all. Is that you're right. Everything you're saying is right, but I'm also that there's a blind spot that some people have, that they don't see it coming from the left. But it's not I don't think the Democratic Party is the
I don't really
Democrats.
consider Joe Biden the left either,
No,
but I understand what you're saying.
he was, to me, he's a corporatist, an extreme he was a right wing warmonger. He's responsible for black and brown people being incarcerated way above their numbers. And then
I think his first 2 years he was a lot more liberal than I ever would have expected, and then that wasn't the case the second 2 years.
And then when he shut down the railroad strike, I mean, that was complete authoritarianism, taking the right to organize away from workers, which would have set the template for the whole country, which is why they had to do that. So anyway, that's why I'm
really hoping that there can be a real conversation, a national conversation about labor and Christian values, because one of my dad's greatest heroes was Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker movement, because I mean, fighting for the biblical rights of workers is something really popular. And there's a lot the Democratic Party could do to become more popular with Christian people by actually talking about what's in the Bible. And there's also just, a lot that the church could do to turn on young people who are leaving in droves, caring about the environment, fighting for workers, opposing racism and homophobia and bigotry. I mean, fighting for social justice, fighting police brutality. These are all really popular ideas that young people dig, and they align very well with the teachings of Christ. Single payer healthcare, don't put people in jail for weed, stop executing people. The church doesn't need to be hemorrhaging this many folks. They still can be groovy if they want, but they have to decide what they want to have. I think women and gay people, the church is going to need them more than they need the church.
So it's mostly made of gay people.
You give some great advice on how to engage people that you would consider Christian fundamentalists, right? You give a lot of great advice. You have like 10 points on how to engage them, and to engage them, respectfully, and you tell them to do it gently, and it's all great advice. You say here, number 10, you say, remember to not give in to any hate they may throw at you. If you're going to debate something as personal as the Bible, your job is to remember to be calm, patient person who doesn't hate back. If you're
Easier
just
said than done, but yeah.
Yeah, if you're just there to antagonize, you'll only make your fundamentalists more cranky and wrathful. Some of these folks seriously enjoy being martyrs, and any hostility from you will give them license to act like that. But then you go on to, you say you can do your part to beat the Christo-fascists at their game. So it seems contradictory. It's like you're saying, be respectful, don't use hate language like they do, but then you use hate language. Like you call them Christo-fascists.
I don't consider Christo-fascist to be hate language, first of all.
Oh, okay.
I'm anti-fascist, and I think Jesus is too, and I think it's a great oxymoron. Christo-fascist is like hot ice or jumbo shrimp or vanilla ice music. It doesn't to me it's more goofy than a slur. Look, I'm still a comedian. It was so hard for me to write this book because in the beginning I just wanted to be all George Carlin tearing down the hypocrites, and I had to turn down the fire and turn up the warmth a bit. But I'm still gonna make fun of this stuff, but I'm not gonna hate them. And I will engage on exactly what the Bible says. And if anyone thinks that me talking about Christo-fascists in the abstract is somehow a slur against them, I'm really sorry. I promise I'll feel guilt about it. I'm still very Catholic. But at the end of the day, let's talk about what the scripture actually says and what the policies the parties are fighting for. And let's decide what's Christian and what's not.
Okay, John,
Christian is removing the rafter from your own eye before you talk about the splinter in your brother's eye.
Exactly.
And
I don't pretend to be a
left
great
here don't
Christian
do that. They don't believe in that. They believe in yelling at someone else.
Well, I'm glad the extreme right doesn't believe in that either. Listen, I don't pretend to be a better Christian. I don't pretend to be better than anybody else. I just got tired of seeing my mom and dad's faith used as cover for meanness.
I agree.
God commands us to welcome the stranger and treat the alien as one of our own. Jesus says we'll be judged by how we welcome the stranger. I'm not saying there shouldn't be restrictions on who comes into our country. It's the criminalization of migrants, calling them illegals. They're Christian refugees. And if they wanted them to stop, they'd start locking up the employers who do all the hiring. They will never take down the help wanted sign at our border. This is all a scam. I mean, they could a felony, 1 year in jail if you hire an undocumented, and then it'll stop. And a salad will cost $75, and they'll stop crossing the border. They don't want that. They use the issue to get power.
Agreed with you on that. And I've often advocated on this show, hey, don't go after the workers. Go after the guy who hired the workers, and it'll end tomorrow.
They always lock up the guys in the meatpacking plant, never the guys in the back room counting the money.
That's exact. And I've said that. I go, if Trump was serious about this, he would make a public arrest of one of these executives who hired all these, and then that would end. But he's not serious about it.
He's the only president to hire them himself in 2 different centuries.
Yeah.
Undocumented immigrants built Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue.
So on Chuck Schumer, I played this clip on my show, and in 2015 he gave a speech where he said you have to call them illegals because if you don't, that's a signal to the American people that you're not. You're not. So that was the leader.
It's racist when he says it too.
Yeah, that's the leader of the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
so
racist when he says it.
So this isn't a Republican Democrat thing, is what I'm saying about.
No, to me, it's a Christian or anti-Christian kind of thing. I call them Christian refugees because it'll really infuriate the right people.
And what I try to remind people is
people
that
whose daughter got killed by an illegal alien. Those people.
And that wait a minute, is that an illegal immigrant didn't take your job? A capitalist found someone in a more desperate situation than you that he could exploit more and
Correct.
Gave your job to that person. So you
correct. And notice how they're not deporting the agricultural sector.
Of
Trump
course,
has decided because our economy is propped up. No, he's not doing that. That's what Reagan did. He's just exploiting them still because our economy is propped up by exploited labor of marginalized people, usually brown, and we're all part of this hypocrisy. We can talk about it. They're here. They're working here. I mean, I think one thing COVID did prove is that, yeah, you should have health benefits for undocumented immigrants because as long as they're handling the food, let's make sure they're not sick, eh? I mean, they're already here and they pay state and local and sales taxes. So I've never heard a white lawbreaker called an illegal on
they were here
any news show
legally,
before.
though.
It's only used at brown people who have crossed the border, never at the white ones who've overstayed their visas.
No, I understand that. I've had that discussion with plenty of people.
I want Canadians deported.
There's 50,000 Irish in this country. Get
them out.
Between 20 and 50. What have you heard about getting rid of all the Irish? I'm on the Upper West Side. It's almost all undocumented Russians here. No, nothing. No ICE.
Oh, really? Okay. So yeah, but you're not like pro illegal immigration. You wouldn't go that far, right?
No, Reagan was pro amnesty.
Yes.
Reagan was pro open borders.
Sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
But listen, Christianity was supposed to be a sanctuary city. The reality is, if God commands this and Jesus commands this, why should I listen to Donald Trump and reject God and Jesus?
Well, you believe. I had Dennis Kucinich on the show, and we all know him as being he was so left that the Democrats gerrymandered him out of his own seat in Congress, right?
Yes.
So he's kind of a hero of mine, Dennis Kucinich, because and I had him on the show when he was running for president, and I asked him, I said, "What would you do with the border?" And he said, "We got to shut it down. You have to shut." I was like, "Whoa, I didn't see that coming." Right from him, and Bernie
Sanders come anyway. They're not going to stop coming.
And Bernie Sanders used to, in as recent as 2015, called open borders a Koch brothers scheme, right? Because it is. And so you're not for you're for having a strong border, and you're for having
if you're on American soil, you're legally allowed to claim asylum for one.
Yeah.
And if we want to have people stop claiming asylum here and fleeing Central America, well, then maybe we can stop the drug war and maybe we can stop giving them things to flee from because we are still subsidizing the drug war and making these cartels rich. I don't want to get into the whole thing about legalization but we have military bases all over Central America, and these people are fleeing violence of our. Jimmy, you were talking before about shows for the troops. I played a show once at the Air Force Base in Honduras, which is being eaten by termites because it was made during the Reagan administration of wood, and it's still there 40 years later, falling apart. And so many of these folks are fleeing the violence that, in many cases, is caused still by our military intervention.
That's also the message of this show. If one thing J.D. Vance and Donald Trump will never talk about is why are there 7 million Venezuelans fleeing to the United States?
Yeah,
it's because we've been putting economic sanctions on them to try to make their life living hell, so they have to flee. Nobody wants to leave their own country as a poor person, but they do, and then they come here, and then we demonize them once they got here because they're a victim of our own foreign policy.
Wait.
And so no, hold on. And so that's been what I've been. So if you're
pay billions in taxes every year. Pay billions in taxes every year.
Okay, look, all that's great. The point is, the people at the lowest level, they're the ones that got to deal with it. It's not like, I agree with all that. Stop blowing their goddamn countries up. That's a great idea. Send them to Martha's Vineyard then if they want asylum. They're not going to allow that. They're going to call it a political move and send them back to working class people to deal with. I don't blame those working class people if their kids get stabbed and every dumb Democrat tried to cover it up every time because they hate Trump. The people at the lowest end, they're the ones that got to pay for that. In Chicago, that dipshit mayor, That was all black people going, what the fuck are you doing? All this funding, we live here, we have to live like animals, and you're giving it to foreigners that are, I need asylum, motherfucker. So every time a liberal does this sanctimonious shit, you don't care about these workers when you say that. They shouldn't have to pay that tab. Like, they're going to say, get them the fuck out because I'm being affected right now. I don't think they're bad for that.
Okay.
Even though I agree with the first part you said.
Okay, I have, this is...
undocumented and documented immigrants commit crimes at markedly lower rates than natural-born Americans.
There shouldn't be any. If you're here illegally, you shouldn't get to commit crimes.
I agree with you. And if they commit crimes, they should be deported. I'm with you.
We have criminals at home.
So I want to...
Yes, we do. More.
We don't need extras.
All right, we got to go. But
we're exporting those all over, too.
Come see me on tour in Hermosa Beach, Sacramento, San Francisco, Irvine, California, Australia, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.